All right, let's get into a pretty quick video here responding to some disinformation from radical leftist and comedian Jon Stewart. Now, Jon Stewart, as someone experienced in the media and someone who is a comedian, is quite good with his words. He's quick with his rhetoric, with his thinking, even if that leads to arguments based on lies and twisted half-truths. And that really comes into play when he kind of picks on someone who here seems to be a hand-chosen freshman congressman, I believe, and Jon Stewart really outclasses him rhetorically, but that doesn't mean that what Jon Stewart is saying is a good actual logical argument, or much less that it's true. So let's get into that right now.
What's the leading cause of death amongst children in this country? And I'm going to give you a hint. It's not drag show readings to children.
Correct, yes.
So what is it?
I'm presuming you're going to say it's firearms.
No, I'm not going to say it like it's an opinion. That's what it is.
Right, we see how Jon Stewart very forcefully and confidently interjects his quote-unquote facts into the conversation and kind of calls this pro-Second Amendment advocate to the carpet with what he is at least presenting as a ironclad argument against guns and against, well, why would we justify using and owning them when they're killing all these kids, right? It's terrible. They're killing these kids. Let's pick this apart because it's really not a good argument, but I see how it could be scary to some people. Whether he knows it or not, Jon Stewart is either very deceptive or very misinformed here. The study he's referencing includes teenagers up to 18 and 19 years old, also called legal adults, as quote-unquote children, when he's talking about kids being killed by guns en masse as the leading cause of death in the US. All right, that was point number one. Point number two is that this statistic includes people who have taken their own life. I don't want to say the word. We'll say self-deleted because we know that that word is very likely to get us censored here on the internet. So people who do that, who self-delete, are not in the same category as violent criminals who are threatening to others. Jon Stewart intentionally does not tell you that. Lastly, and most importantly though, this argument is based on a faulty assertion. It's basically based on a logical fallacy. The fallacy goes like this from Jon Stewart's standpoint. If something is causing pain or trouble specifically to children, why on earth would you support anyone using that thing in a private sense? That's ridiculous, and you should feel ashamed for even arguing for that. You probably caught it, right? That's not how any of us think. That's not how policymakers think, and it shouldn't be. When we build a road from town A to town B, we know with reasonable certainty that people are going to get in car crashes, get injured, lose money, and probably die over the years on that road. We accept that risk and we accept that reality. Why? Because we as a society and as policymakers and as construction workers have decided that the good that road will do is very likely going to outweigh the bad and the loss. How about an even more grounded example? The third leading cause of death for all people in the United States, not just children, everybody, is medical mistake. The third leading. Now, what's ahead of it? Guns or anti-vaxxers? No. What's ahead of it is heart disease and cancer. So when we look at the third leading cause, which is the only one that is directly done to someone by someone else out of the top three, heart disease and cancer are not done to someone by someone else, medical malpractice or mistakes are done to someone by someone else. We don't look at all medicine or all doctors or all nurses or all pharmacists and say, you are out of control. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't even exist. We need medical reform now. You're all evil. As a matter of fact, anyone who even looks to you as a resource is considered evil. Now, why don't we generally do that to the medical world and the medical industry? Because we have decided that even though they are the third leading cause of death for all people in the United States, ahead of gangbangers with guns, ahead of those nasty, freedom-loving, Bible-thumping country folk with guns, medical industry malpractice and mistakes are a leading cause of death. We still recognize that the good they do is more valuable than the bad that they do. So the question isn't, why don't we ban it? The question is, how do we measure the good and the bad? And then let's make an educated decision about whether this tool, resource, or freedom is worth it. The funny thing is, gun grabbers like Jon Stewart understand this. They understand this in all realms of life, and they understand it when it's applied to guns too. John and his elitist celebrity and politician friends tend to live in gated communities, sometimes with armed guards. They speak at events with armed guards, both public and private, and some of them even have them at their houses. Now, this isn't a problem, but it is a problem when you're trying to argue that it's good for you and your friends to benefit from that, but not for the single mom at home alone. The real question we should be asking is not how much harm does it do, period. It's how much harm does this thing threaten to do, and how much good does it offer to do? That's what we do with everything else. That's how we make our policy and personal decisions. When you're about to eat a cheeseburger and a milkshake, you know that's not good for your body, but the good that it does because you enjoy it, you calculate, is worth it. With guns, we actually have pretty good estimates about how much good they do in forms of two measures. One metric is how many people have been saved from violent and possibly deadly situations by brandishing or using a firearm. Those numbers are in the hundreds of thousands and sometimes upwards of 1 million each year. The second way to measure this is to look at how many tyrants throughout history have been gun grabbers. One of the reasons the US has remained free and has been able to preserve rare liberties like true freedom of speech and freedom of religion is because they are backed by an armed populace. Our founders understood this, and that is why they gave us the Second Amendment. So does an armed populace do more good ultimately than bad? I would say historically, absolutely yes. But we could have that debate, and it's not a bad one to have. However, Jon Stewart would rather stand on the graves of dead children and grandstand while misleading you to feel bad about exercising your freedoms and liberties.